Welcome to a story about Stan, an Atlantic sturgeon, and his journey through his environment. Our story starts with Stan, an Atlantic sturgeon. He hatched in the headwaters of the Choptank River. At the very start of the river, the water's clear and the river bottom is perfect for sturgeon eggs. Can you remember what type of river bottom is the best for sturgeon? Rocky. What else makes a good sturgeon habitat? As you look at Stan's surroundings, we see clear water, which also means lots of food for Stan to eat too. Stan loves swimming in the headwaters of the Choptank, but as he grows bigger and bigger, it's time for Stan to take a new journey. He's growing into a juvenile sturgeon and is getting ready to migrate to a new habitat. If Stan is now a juvenile sturgeon, can you remember what body of water he is going to migrate to? The Chesapeake Bay. Stan begins his journey to the Chesapeake Bay. After a few miles, he swims past the town of Denton. Sandra, who is a third grade student at the local elementary school, loves her town. But she isn't careful with her trash and she never recycles. Sometimes her chip bags and plastic bottles and old homework papers fall out of her backpack onto the schoolyard. On a windy day, all of the litter from the schoolyard blows into the storm drain. Where do storm drains lead? Yeah, that's right, usually right to the river. Do you think this will stop Stan from continuing to the Chesapeake Bay? No way. He keeps going. Stan keeps moving through Denton. The weather gets cold and it starts snowing. Steve, who drives the salt truck that prevents icy roads, puts down too much salt. When the snow melts, all of the salty slush flows into the storm drain and into the river. But does this stop Stan from continuing to the Chesapeake Bay? No way. Stan makes his way down the Choptank River and soon he reaches the town of Preston. Farmer Frank lives just outside of Preston, really close to the banks of the Choptank. Frank loves his animals and takes very good care of them. He even reuses their waste as fertilizer for his crops. Sometimes, though, Frank uses more fertilizer than his crops can soak up, and when it rains, all of the fertilizer runs off into the Choptank. But does this stop Stan from swimming downstream? No! There's a really nice park in Preston. A stream flows through the park and into the Choptank. Terry has lived in Preston his entire life, and when he was a young man, he cut down the trees alongside of the stream. But now that the roots of the trees don't hold that soil into place, every time it rains, all of the loose soil and dirt run off into the stream and eventually into the Choptank. All of the soil makes it really hard for Stan to see. What word do we use for water that's really cloudy and hard to see through? Turbid. But does this stop Stan from swimming downstream? No. Stan is near the city of Cambridge and knows he is getting close to the bay. Stan leaps out of the water, intending to make a big splash to let other sturgeon know he's close by. Instead, he lands in a boat. Luckily, Waterman Walt knows about sturgeon and that they are a protected, endangered species. Walt gently releases Stan back into the river. However, Waterman Walt hasn't gotten his boat checked by a mechanic for a while, and it's leaking oil. A bunch of used oil leaks out of the boat and into the Choptank. How is Stan doing at this point? Do you think he's able to sense his surroundings very well in the river? Can someone remind me what sturgeon use to sense their surroundings? Barbels, the whisker-like structures near their mouth. The river has become more turbid, yes, but Stan needs to make it to the Chesapeake Bay. Do you think he'll keep going? Yes, of course he will. In Cambridge, Annie Jones just bought her first car. She's very proud of her car and washes it every single day. However, the soap she uses to wash her car has chemicals in it, and when she hoses down her car, all of the soap flows into the storm drain and then right into the river. Stan is so close to the bay now. Do you think this is going to stop him? No! Stan makes it to the town of Oxford. He's at the mouth of the chop tank and almost into the bay. In Oxford, almost everyone has a dog, including Jim. Jim, Jim takes his dog Pirate for a walk twice a day, but he never cleans up Pirate's poop. It rains, and all the dog poop from Oxford flows into the chop tank. Stan doesn't feel too well at this point, but he finally makes it to the bay. Stan lives in the bay for several years as he becomes an adult. Once he becomes an adult, where does he go? The Atlantic Ocean. Once Stan reaches 13 years old in the ocean, he's ready to go back to the Chop Tank River to find a mate. Do you think Stan will want to come back to the river if the water is still turbid? Probably not. We know that sturgeon like clear rivers with gravel bottoms. What did we learn from this story? What is the vocab word that describes when pollution from the land flows into our rivers? Runoff. There is another thing that we know. Kids can make a difference. There are different things that you can do to keep our rivers pollution-free so that the water is clean enough for Stan and his offspring to live in. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching Stan's journey, and listening to his story.